What do you make
I
in
don't
the face
understand how that was any better than the way that I said it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
What the fuck are you talking about? You just castigated me and then just said the exact same thing.
Welcome back, citizens of De Niro Nation, to Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast that is watching and recapping Robert De Niro's entire filmography in random order. I'm Mike, and with me as always is my co-host, Mike.
Hello.
And today we're talking about the 1977 American romantic comedy musical film, New York, New York, directed by Martin Scorsese.
And what a film it is. I'm so excited to talk about it.
You and me both. What are the odds that we rolled 3 Scorsese films in a row? Mean Streets, Raging Bull, and now this.
So, I mean, I guess it would have been fun if we'd sat down and done the math beforehand. Maybe we can sit down and do the math after this and put it in the in the show notes. It's a little more complicated than this because there are a few more De Niro films on the list that we haven't seen, but it's probably something like whatever, like 5 out of 65 times 4 out of 64 times 3 out of 63 is, which is obviously like an infinitesimally small number. Like it's like a 1% of 1% of 1% chance that this would happen. Like it's fucking crazy, honestly. It's pretty wild.
The film gods smile upon us, you know?
Sure, with the first two, not so much with this one, but yeah.
Yeah, I know that neither of us had seen this film before. I'd never even heard of it, and I found the production history of the film quite interesting. So this was directed by Scorsese after things kind of fell through with The Last Temptation of the Christ, which is a project he'd been trying to get off the ground for quite some time. So this film was written by Earl Mac Rauch and Martic Martin, and it's notable for including the song New York, New York, which became a worldwide hit and standard. I had no idea that song originated from this film, but I guess it makes sense.
The version in the movie sucks. That was probably one of the funniest experiences of watching the film was like, you see the song so late in the movie. And when you get to it, it's like, I don't know. I've heard the Frank Sinatra version minimum 2,000 times in my life. I really love that song. He really needed to dress it up to make it a good song because the version of the movie is nowhere near as good as his recording. The movie version would not have become a standard as the Sinatra version did.
See, I don't have that much experience with it, so I can't comment. But I did find the production history of this film pretty interesting and I think very relevant to our discussion of the film that's coming up. So
agreed.
I just want to make a few notes here. Scorsese, when he made this film, it's interesting. He wanted to marry the old Hollywood movie musicals of his parents' generation with gritty documentary style realism, which is an interesting experiment. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about whether or not that was successful. And he also was addicted to, and I think it's also worth noting that Scorsese was addicted to cocaine during the production of this film. And he basically thought that he could improve or kind of fix the script as they were shooting, which led to the initial cut of the film being 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, and I'd like to add something else fascinating that I read about Scorsese's drug use while on the set, which was that he was also moderating his cocaine-fueled mood swings with lithium. So he was like uppersing and downersing for like the whole production. And I read an incredible quote from him. I don't have it written down, but there was some quote that I read where he was like, based on his like mental state during the production of the film, it's a miracle that it has any coherence at all. Like I'm paraphrasing, but it's something to that effect. And we'll talk about it more, but you feel it while you watch the film. You certainly do.
I did my due diligence, and the exact quote is, "It's a miracle that the film makes any kind of sense." That's not what you want to read. That's not what you want to read towards the top of the Wikipedia page for a film that you are obligated to watch.
So funny. Yep. We have a contractual obligation to the citizens of De Niro Nation to watch this film. So
yeah, the film co-stars Robert De Niro and Liza Minelli, and Scorsese actually had an affair with Minelli on set during filming, and his wife at the time was often on set trying to catch them in the midst of their cheating, which is a little nutso. And Robert De Niro, he used to like his method acting, I guess. He actually studied saxophone with Georgie Auld, a veteran of swing giants Artie Shaw and Benny Goodman's bands. When they recorded the saxophone bits in the movie, Georgie would be off screen actually playing and De Niro would be miming along the proper movements, which is kind of crazy. I really like that.
It is really cool. Yeah, it makes me think about Raging Bull, right? And the same type of method acting that he employed in Raging Bull. I think it makes sense that he did not learn to play the saxophone as he learned to box, because I'm not trying to delegitimize how difficult it would be to learn to box. But I have to imagine that if you're a person who's in good shape and good at physicality, it's probably significantly easier to learn to fight well than it is to play saxophone like a world-class saxophonist would. Like, I feel like you train your whole life to be a really good saxophonist. You could probably do a boot camp for 3 or 6 months and become a pretty good fighter if you were in good shape and busting your ass to learn to do it well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details, but I have to imagine it's easier to throw a punch than it is to do that lip work, do that tongue work.
Yeah, but it still is. So I read that fact before I watched the film, and I was fascinated watching. You really can't ever tell that he's pantomiming. He does it so super well. It's a really cool performance.
I agree. And just to cap off the production notes here, the film was a commercial success. It cost $9 million to make, which was over budget, but it did make $16.5 million at the box office. And the film has an overall critical score of 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. So real mixed reception and legacy to this one.
Thanks for sharing all that. I'd also written down most of those things to say. The one piece of context I want to add, besides what I added before about the lithium, is I found knowing that Scorsese had been having an affair with Liza Minelli interesting while I was watching the film. It's interesting to imagine that she was his muse while he was creating this, because I don't think she's very good in the role. And I think that it kind of speaks to the pull she must have had over him, that he thought that this was working. I don't know that she and De Niro have very good chemistry, honestly, but he probably had really good chemistry with her, which I'm sure contributed to him misreading a little bit what was going on screen.
Well, it is interesting. Well, should we get right into it then?
Wow, God, should we ever?
I just want to say at the top that I watched the 1981 special edition of this film, which is 164 minutes long and includes a 12-minute movie within a movie, essentially. So I don't know if yours included that, but I might end up talking about it. It did? Okay. Yeah, so we're on the same page then. Lucky us, as if this film wasn't long enough to begin with.
And I would like to share that I watched this film on DVD from my local library. And, blast from the past. Our Gen Z listeners will literally not have any familiarity potentially with this, like, conceptually. But back in the 90s, I guess DVDs as a technology became ubiquitous in probably 97 or 98, right? Maybe 99 at the latest.
Yeah.
I think we got our first DVD player in 1999 because I remember The Matrix was the first new movie that we ever bought on DVD. Shout out to last week's incredible Matrix episode. And in the 90s, and really until probably 2008 or 2009, I think the main shape of TVs was 4:3. It wasn't 16:9 as TVs are today. And so most DVDs default aspect ratio was actually 4:3, not 16:9. So I watched a 4:3 DVD of this film on my gigantic 16:9 TV, but it was both letterboxed and pillar boxed. So there was just a tiny little, like, almost square in the middle of my TV screen with maybe like 12 inches on either of the sides and like 6 to 10 inches on the top and bottom. Like, it was really a fascinating viewing experience. And it was a very weird way to watch the film. And it did have the interlude. So I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, my copy of the film was great. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to try to keep this nice and tight today. So we open up with some very jaunty opening credits, and it is VJ Day, 1945. We won the war. Go us, the greatest generation. And there's a huge party happening in the streets, and we get our first De Niro face reveal at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. He's wearing a fun, like, I don't know if they were considered Hawaiian shirts back in the 1940s, but he's essentially wearing like a fun printed, shirt. And a band is playing. Cool. Yeah, it is. It's a great look.
It has like It's a blue shirt, and it has like a bunch of like New York stuff printed on it. And one of the things is, I guess, probably the Empire State Building, right? And it just says on the shirt in giant, bold typefaced, "World's Tallest Building" or something like that. It's like, it's so lame and like gaudy and loud. It's such a cool shirt. Like, I kind of want to buy it, honestly. I'm sure you can buy it.
Yeah, because this is like an armed forces celebration. It's all soldiers celebrating. Yep. So everyone except for De Niro is wearing their military uniform. He's taking it like it's casual Friday, which I love. Great vibe to the character in this particular moment. It won't last long.
Oh yeah, I know. It's one of the only good vibes he has for the whole film. So enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I want to make a comment about the cinematography here. Did you notice this or care about it? You know, what impact did it have on you? Because I want to describe it in this scene.
What I noticed about the cinematography is that, so talk about the editing for a second really quick. The scenes are extremely long, but the thing that struck me about the cinematography, which I think contributes to the way that the scenes feel, is that the shots are very long. Everything feels very slow and deliberate in a way that it has a really odd effect. It's really interesting that Scorsese watched this and thought, like, let's put this one out. But what did you notice about the cinematography? Was that part of it?
No, that's interesting because that's not what I was going to say at all. So I think the way that Scorsese's experiment in marrying old Hollywood sensibilities with documentary style realism manifests itself visually is the cinematographer for this film was Michael Chapman, who also shot Taxi Driver, which I still have yet to see, and Raging Bull. And he basically shoots the film in two different styles. So during the like musical numbers and kind of the larger than life sequences, like this opening party, they are shot on incredibly fake looking artificial sets. They're not shot on location or anything like that.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And the colors are vibrant, the lighting is more dramatic, and it looks very artificial, contrasted with the more confrontational kind of scenes where they shoot with more naturalistic kind of handheld camera work and things like that. And it just creates this visual tension throughout the entire film, which is, longer than 2.5 hours long. And I don't really think that worked for me visually, that marriage of the two styles. It didn't really congeal for me at any point.
No, it certainly didn't work for me either. Just as a kind of editor note for you and me right now. I mean, I wouldn't consider the set design to be part of the cinematography, would you?
No, I guess not. I guess I just kind of combined it in my head. The way that it's like the visual
it's a fine
style
note
of the film.
Yeah. It is interesting. I agree. But it's not something I notice cinematographically because it's not cinematography. It's set design.
Well, really, really glad we took the time for that. So De Niro's character is kind of wandering around the party by himself, and he's just trying to hit on every single woman that he sees at this shindig. And he's trying all these techniques. You can tell he's kind of a smooth talker, just going up to a woman that he's never met before and sitting down and going, "Oh, we met a few years ago. Remember, it was at this party or this function, and I should get your number so we can stay in touch." And so he talks to a few other soldiers, so we know that he was also, in the service, and eventually meets Liza Minelli. So she's kind of sitting down at a table by herself, and he really puts the moves on her quite aggressively. He occupies the empty chair across from her at the table, asks for her number multiple times. She refuses and tells him like explicitly, like, "Can you go? I don't want you here. No." And he does the movie romance thing of just refusing to accept that or listen to her no's and just powers through, which, movies taught us for decades was romantic. But you can't get away with nowadays. You'll get canceled for that sort of behavior. Eventually, it reaches the point where he says, "Just give me your number and we'll avoid all of this." And she says it's not very gentlemanly of him. And he goes, "Do I look like a gentleman in these shirt and pants?" Which I thought was pretty good because it was a great casual look.
There's another line in this conversation, too, that made me laugh, which was it's the exact moment that you're saying. It's probably in the exact same conversation. He says, like, "Just give me your number. What's the worst that could happen?" And she just goes, "You'll call it."
That is really good.
It's a great line. Very great comeback in that situation.
I agree. That's pretty good. So De Niro eventually, this is a prolonged conversation. Again, this film is like 2 hours and 45 minutes long. So he eventually relents and he walks away and he bumps into his friend. His friend had met some woman who, by pure coincidence, is Minelli's friend. So they kind of sit down together, all four of them. But De Niro's friend and the woman, they want to go back to the hotel room that Jimmy and the guy share. And so it kind of just leaves Jimmy is De Niro's character with Minelli's character, Francine. I mean, I want to note that De Niro's character, Jimmy, is chewing juicy fruit gum almost throughout the entire film. It's a really weird character choice.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't really know anything about gum, but like, I don't know. I think juicy fruit was a pretty popular gum 100 years ago, and I think people probably chewed a lot of gum. So I don't know if it really is that weird, actually. It's like, I don't know. Everybody was smoking cigarettes constantly. Like, your breath was probably really nasty all the time. So maybe you just like always needed to be chewing gum to stave that off a little bit.
But could you tell? If you smoke that much, doesn't it like kill your sense of smell and taste?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, right? I wonder if it does that much. Probably, right? I mean, it seemed like he was smoking constantly, so it had to be like a pack or two a day. So yeah, I feel like you really wouldn't have a very good sense of smell or taste, but I don't know. I've never done it, so I don't know. Let's take up a really serious smoking habit. Let's like work our way up to like 1 to 2 packs a day, and we'll report back to you, the citizens of De Niro Nation, how our olfactory senses have transformed as a result.
Yeah, it's never too late to start.
Yeah, I mean that's true, right? I mean, especially now, right?
So it's the end of the night, and Jimmy re-enters his hotel, and Minelli, Francine, happens to be at the front desk asking the clerk about the location of her friend. 'Cause she's kind of worried because her friend, got drunk and went off with this stranger to hook up or shag or whatever they called it in 1945. And Francine and the clerk both want to talk to Jimmy. And we learn that Jimmy has given an alias, a fake name, to the clerk and has basically been scamming the hotel, running up a very large bill in a hotel suite. And the jig is up because Minelli totally fucks up his cover and refers to him as his real name, Jimmy Powell, instead of the alias of Mr. Doyle.
And it seems that he's been doing this at multiple hotels. Like the clerk references that like he's spoken with proprietors of other hotels in the city who've all got records of this character having racked up like huge charges and then just walked out without paying his tabs.
This is a great way for us to learn more about Jimmy pretty quickly. He is a scammer. He's very melodramatic. He makes a big deal to Francine about how she needs to go up to the room to warn his friend and her friend to get out of there and to get his bag while she's at it. And she seems to be attracted to the melodrama, which I think is going to bite her in the ass later on, but we'll see how things progress. And he says that he has an audition.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, probably. So after this occurrence, Jimmy and Francine share a cab. Francine wants to go, I think, back to her place or whatever, but Jimmy convinces her to go along with him to his audition in Brooklyn. And he says the things that interest him the most. Number 1, money. Number 2, music. And number 3, he just makes kissing noises. So we're pretty early into the film, and already I noted that God. He seems like a very obnoxious dick, but he seems pretty funny so far.
Yes. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
Significantly. Yeah. But I too was still charmed by him at this moment. Like I was like, he seems annoying. Like he seems like he would be a frustrating person to know. But like at this point in the movie, I was like, yeah, but maybe like 4 or 5 times a year, you could have a nice time hanging out with this guy. Like just go out, like have a few drinks. Like, yeah, but we'll see where it goes over the next 2 hours and 34 minutes.
So we're at the audition, and Jimmy, he's a saxophonist, so he's playing sax in this, the bar. It's like a bar that's pretty empty except for the people who are there to assess the auditions. And his playing is too intense. He's too passionate about the art, and the manager doesn't like it. So Francine suggests that he play a little smoother. And, just over the course of all of these interactions that Jimmy has with basically anyone in the film, but especially Francine, we see that he really doesn't like being forced to compromise his art in any sort of way. And he's a real dick about it. It's just a recurring theme for Jimmy. He's just a real prick all the time about seemingly everything. So Jimmy's about to storm out of the bar because he's so unwilling to play smooth jazz that the 1940s crowd wants to hear. And Francine starts singing. She's a USO singer, or she was anyways. And Jimmy plays along to the singing, and they realize that they work together as a duo. So we get a montage of them performing and getting close to each other. They kiss, they share a hotel room, etc., etc. And they have this long conversation where he seems nervous that she's going to like leave and not see him again, but she reassures him that they'll meet up in the next day. So it's the next night, supposedly, and Jimmy's finishing performing at a club, and some random guy, like messenger, old-ass dude, too old to be a messenger, honestly, comes up to Jimmy and asks if he's Jimmy, to which Jimmy says no. They have a back and forth, and the guy hands him a letter and says, well, this is for Jimmy, and it's from Francine. So Jimmy reads the letter and immediately follows the guy out of the bar because the note basically says that, what was the point of this letter? Like, she didn't want to see him again. She was like dumping him, right? But she says that, I think that guy was her agent, and there was like a possibility of him getting a spot on a band with her or something. I think that was it.
I don't think it's very important. I think there's a lot of the like mechanical details of the plot of this film that are like fundamentally totally unnecessary to discuss.
So the gist of the letter is that Francine was, I guess that's how you ghosted someone in 1945. You sent a polite handwritten letter to be delivered via courier. And Jimmy argues with the guy long enough to learn that she is on tour with a band in Asheville. So I guess this goes on for some time, and eventually it transitions over to winter, and we learn that Francine's working at a club in Virginia, because they're touring around the country. So he gets on a train, and he arrives at the club in Virginia right when Francine is finishing a song. So, and they talk outside of the club, and again, it's like a very artificial looking set. It's an interesting look. I kind of wish they went in one direction. Either keep the look gritty and realistic, or keep it artificial and bright and unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this shows the limits of contrast as like a thematic or storytelling device, right? Because it's like, I understand what he's trying to do with these contrasting styles, but there's too much tension. So you don't like the emotional journey he wanted you to go on was like, I think just kind of riding along with the tension in a way that makes you feel that tension smoothly and like naturally. But it's actually just very disorienting the way it's changing constantly. And like, it's probably because he was on lithium, right?
Couldn't help.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think that there are ways that certain types of psychotropic drugs, like they like fill in the gaps for you, right? And experiences that you're having. And like, I've never taken lithium, but it is that kind of medication, like that kind of mind altering substance. And like, you can imagine it having like kind of smooth those edges for him when he was like seeing all this. And he was like, yeah, I bet you this feels great. But it only does if you're on lithium, so.
I mean, listen,
let's take lithium and watch this again.
Add it to the list after we develop our chain smoking habit.
Yeah.
That's like the progression. By the end of this podcast, we'll be two hollowed out husks.
I can't wait.
So Jimmy talks to Francine outside of the club at night, and the gist of that conversation, at first it's an argument where he's complaining about her not saying goodbye in person, which obviously wouldn't have gone well. Like, you do not understand. You do not understand how obnoxious Jimmy is unless you watch this film. Then in the conversation, it kind of pivots, and he says without thinking that he loves Francine, and then immediately walks it back. Very impressive. After this, he ends up joining the band that Francine's the singer for. It's called some kind of orchestra. And we kind of see over the course of the film, the section of the film when they're performing together, that Jimmy really dominates as the saxophonist and kind of assumes this significant role within the band. We see more touring and more playing, and on the tour bus, Jimmy and Francine talk about writing poetry and music, so kind of setting up a song later on. They're sharing a hotel room, and it's late at night, and Jimmy reads some of Francine's poetry, and has kind of a weird reaction to it. She says she's working on something. It's not quite ready yet. Maybe we'll hear it by the end of this epically long fucking film. And
I don't know if I'll still be watching, honestly.
Joke's on you. You had to. Yeah. He has kind of a weird reaction to the poem. He seems like you can't really tell how he feels about it, but he makes her get dressed. And in the middle of the night in wintertime, they get a cab to the middle of nowhere, this small town in Virginia, to the Justice of the Peace's home. And he tells her that he wants to get married to her right now. And she's not super enthusiastic about the quality of this proposal. She expected
it's like
different.
The worst proposal ever.
She said she expected different, but not that kind of different. I think different means like we're on safari or something. I don't know. Make it kind of special. Make it a little surprising, not that surprising.
Yeah, this was the moment where I really started to hate Jimmy. This was the scene. Not because he does this, but because he's so resistant and almost offended by the fact that she doesn't like this. And it's like a ridiculous reaction to have. Like, it's like, she's not even like very angry about it. Like, she's not like a jerk or anything. She's just like, she's a little bit unhappy that this is the way that it's going to happen. And he's like such a dick about it. And I was like, oh, he's this kind of guy. Like, he's just not just annoying and obnoxious. He's a huge asshole. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, and he becomes antagonistic so quickly. Like, anytime.
So quickly.
Literally anything doesn't go his way, he just immediately retreats into these theatrics. And it's so, again, it's like the sort of thing that, sure, I could see being charming during that initial meet cute. Like, okay, this guy's persistent. He seems kind of annoying, but he looks like Robert De Niro in 1977.
Right.
So
He's
sure.
very emotional,
right.
Like really hot and cold. Like, that's kind of fun, right? Like,
right. But then you kind of fuck around and find out, and he's proposing to you by dragging you out to the Justice of the Peace's home at 2 a.m.
Right,
in the middle of winter.
Like, yeah.
Hey, we want to get married right now. Like, I don't know. Hey, I thought maybe my parents would be here for this, or we'd at least have a conversation, But it works on her, and she says yes, and they get married. Very sweet. And eventually...
Sure, so sweet. Yeah.
Right. Such a sweet moment in cinematic history. One of the most romantic films I've ever seen, bar none. The band leader, whose name I don't remember, he has to bail one of the band players out due to some incident. And he's talking to Francine and basically says that he floats the idea of him quitting the band to Francine. And basically, in so many words, says that he wants to make Jimmy the new band leader. But, his hesitation comes from the fact that Jimmy is universally known to be a pain in the ass. But I guess, he's just the tortured genius, artist, whatever, blah, blah, blah. People really seem to give you a free pass for being an asshole when you're an artist. You think, is that still true? It's got to be true, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an association that people have, right, between more expressive people and being artistic, I guess, that probably contributes to that. I mean, I don't know, at least that's the way that I think about it. Like, you kind of expect it, right? Like Marty Scorsese, right? Obviously a total weirdo, but we get these great movies. Maybe not counting this one, but
well, I think the next time you or one of the loyal citizens of De Niro Nation who knows me personally says I'm an asshole for some reason, just remember that this podcast is my art, and I am an artist.
Tell them you're very artistic.
That's right, exactly. So some time has passed, and Jimmy is now the new band leader. It's his orchestra. And Francine's singing. They get a positive review about it in the paper. Things seem to be going well. It's called Jimmy. Oh, wait, Doyle was his last name. Sorry, my bad. So Jimmy Doyle is his name, and this is
I'm not correcting you this episode, so I didn't correct you. See, I knew that.
Well,
I was like, I'm just trusting it. I'm just trusting
the process.
No, I listen. After Mean Streets and Raging Bull, I got a really hard time for correcting you on stuff and being wrong. So now I'm gun shy. So look at what you've done.
So it's the third week of Jimmy Doyle and his orchestra, and he's having some problems with a couple of the performers. And we see here the dynamic between him and Francine. Francine doesn't have any formal authority necessarily, but they are a couple, and she tries to help improve the group dynamic, I guess, the band dynamic, because Jimmy is like a Whiplash style prick to the performers, accusing them of not being, not being in rhythm with the rest of the band, et cetera, that sort of thing, to the point where like his drummer basically threatens to leave, and it's up to Francine to kind of diffuse that tension. But after she does that, Jimmy, in front of the band, just yells at her, telling her like, don't ever do that. Don't ever speak that way to the band, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's my band. And so we're really getting a feel for the type of person that Jimmy is, the kind of artist that he is. I mean, I find him intolerable at this point.
Oh, yeah. It's powerful. How annoying he is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Francine could still make a clean break. She doesn't have to be with this guy. There's nothing tying her to him. However, after the band finishes performing, Francine walks off the stage and something looks a little off with her. Jimmy follows her outside and down the stairs, and Francine reveals that she's pregnant with his child.
Bum, bum, bum. I would not want to have this guy's child.
Yeah, forget what I said 30 seconds ago. I guess she's kind of stuck with this dude. She's looking for some reassurance, once they're back in bed, and he says he's excited. He demonstrates it in his own Jimmy kind of way that doesn't seem very excited. And she tells him that, because they're on tour, she says that she thinks that she should return to New York City to stay in one place for the duration of the pregnancy, because she'd been told by her doctor that the toll of traveling constantly could result in her losing the baby. So at first, Jimmy, again, because it's not exactly what Jimmy wants or what he envisioned, is a raging asshole about this, and they go back and forth until he ultimately goes, fine, I will allow it. As a man in the 1940s who has this sort of domestic authority, I will allow you to return to your hometown to prevent the unwarranted death of our unborn child. Really nice of him.
Oh yeah, he's a very I think the word is magnanimous. He's a really giving kind of thoughtful guy.
So we cut to Francine getting off the train in New York City, and she's asking her agent Tony to help set up some singing gigs for her. While this is happening, we see Jimmy performing with in his orchestra with a new woman named Bernice. And I think it's implied here that they're having a little extramarital affair.
I don't think it was even just implied. I'm pretty sure that they don't show them fucking. Obviously, it's a musical from the late 1970s.
That's in the.
But I feel like they're handsy cut. And right, they're handsy and flirtatious in a way that like I think was its way of telling you like definitely fucking a little bit off camera.
You don't think he was that handsy with the rest of his bandmates, the drummer that he admonished in the previous scene?
Yep,
just a little grab, a little hustle pat. After they perform, they hit the showers. They're just hitting each other with snapped towels and stuff. While this is happening, we see that the band's leadership seems to be gradually declining, which really, I guess that was the entertainment back then. You didn't really have recorded music in the same way, and I get the sense that people went out more on the weekends back then. But man, it seems like a tough financial model to have to pay like 10 band members for every show at these small venues. I would not want to do that.
You're probably just paying them like $1, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I'm not a musician, but I have had that thought, like, I wouldn't want to be a part of a touring band, like a 4 or 5 piece act. I'd want to be like a solo DJ and just cash that entire check myself. You're not making a ton of money as a musician on the road unless you're, your U2s or your Benson Boones or whoever might be popular.
Oh yeah, those are the two right there.
I've never heard a Benson Boone song in my life, and God willing, I never will.
Just put one at the start of this episode. That would be a funny bit. Like not using the song New York, New York, but just totally inexplicably, like the, a well-known 3 or 4 second few measures from a famous Benson Boone song. It just makes no sense until you get halfway through the episode to this portion of the discussion.
Yeah, we get a copyright strike for using Benson Boone's music, ironically. That'd be terrible. What a way to go. So at the end of this section of the film is basically Jimmy, he's sharing a bedroom with Bernice, a hotel room. So she's crying in the bathroom, saying that the band is done. It sounds like they're kind of washed up. So Jimmy just starts packing his stuff up, and he cut to Jimmy signing the band away to some guy named Paul.
It's going to be Paul's orchestra now.
Yeah.
Makes me think about one of my favorite Family Guy bits when
What's that?
When Adam West meets the cat named Paul. You remember this?
No, that was like 20 years ago, I'm sure.
I'm not going to tell you what it is. I just want you to put the sound clip in from it. You should watch it after the episode. But there you go.
Great. That's fantastic. I love that little hanging thread.
It's going to make you laugh when you watch the clip, and it's going to make our viewers laugh when they're listening to the episode, especially Andrew. It'll actually be the first time since he was a teenager when he first watched the episode that he's heard the sound of Adam West saying the line at 1x speed. Well, but he'll be listening to the podcast at faster than 1x speed. So yeah. Interesting.
You played yourself.
I did.
Damn, I lost him. All right, cats, back in the bag. Come on, Fluffy. Come on, Mittens. Come on, Paul. What a ridiculous name for a cat. Paul, that's a person's name. A person's name.
Before we get into the next section of this film, I want to ask you, how do you feel about jazz music? How did you feel about the music in this film, jazz in general? The film has there is a lot of jazz, instrumental kind of jazz, because that's what Jimmy plays as a saxophonist, but you get a lot of big band kind of show tunes in the soundtrack as well.
Yeah, I really like the music in this movie. It's my favorite thing about it. I'm not a huge jazz listener, as you and me have discussed actually on the podcast. In case you don't recall, we've discussed that that's one of the key differences between us, that the instrumental music I listen to is classical and yours is jazz. But I do really like big band music, and I really enjoyed the music in this movie. What did you think?
I did like the soundtrack to this film, but in general, I don't like big band music or show tunes. Here's the thing about me that I should have said at the top of this film. I don't like musicals. I like jazz a lot. I listen to it quite regularly, but I prefer more instrumental, smoother kind of stuff. I really like piano-driven pieces and groove-oriented sounds. I like jazz funk, a bit peppier of a sound. I really like Coltrane and Miles Davis. So that sort of jazz, is what I usually lean towards. This is kind of outside of my comfort zone, but I thought it was a very good soundtrack. So going back to the world's longest film over here, New York, New York, Jimmy surprises Francine back in New York City, and he doesn't want to talk about the disillusion of his orchestra, the band. He meets some new musicians, and I made a note here. He meets some black musicians. I thought it was interesting that it took an hour and 15 minutes of runtime in this musical about jazz, the great American art form, the great African American art form, that it took this long to see literally any black people. But they invite him to play in a Harlem club, and we see that he's doing really well as the band's saxophonist. So it's the next day, it's daytime, and Jimmy's waiting in his car. He's kind of idling in a parking spot outside of the recording studio, and Francine comes out, gets into the car, and some guy rolls up next to them with his wife, some just normal middle-aged dude, and asks if he can have the spot if they're about to leave, which, one, is a totally normal question to ask, and two, they were about to leave. So there shouldn't be a problem here. There shouldn't be any issue at all. Like, Jimmy should just say, yeah, I'm going to pull out right now, and then you can have it. But instead, Jimmy gets into an insane yelling match with the guy. It's like road rage, and he's not even driving on the road. He just happens to be sitting on it. And it's just incredibly stressful. Apparently, Francine is 6 months pregnant at this point, and so she's getting riled up by this entire thing, trying to get her insane husband to stop arguing with this stranger who asked a totally benign question.
So I remember this scene a little bit differently, and I think that I'm right, and I think it's actually pretty important to the characters. So I think they were about to leave, but just as the guy pulls up to ask about the parking space, they get into an argument with each other that prevents them from leaving right away. And so I think that's why Jimmy has the really strong reaction that he has, is because he's already all riled up, getting like really pissed at Francine because he's starting to scream at her. And then this guy's like interrupting him while he's getting his like self-righteous head of steam up to yell at his wife. But then the other thing that's interesting about it is she does get all emotional about it, but she's on Jimmy's side. So she and Jimmy are actually like screaming at...
You got to stand up for your man,
at this person in the car. All right, listen, It's all well and fine. I just mean, like, I think that when we talk about the characters and like what is supposed to be like happening in these characters' lives and their relationship, I think a lot of what this film is about the ways that being together change Jimmy and Francine, right? They're like different as individuals when they're together than they are when they're apart. And I think that's like an important version of it, because she would not ordinarily be aggressive in that way. But because of like the dynamic she and Jimmy has, she behaves in this like insane, toxic way toward the stranger who, to your point, is just asking the most normal fucking question on earth. Like, can I have that parking space that you're obviously about to leave? Yeah,
I think when you're selecting a partner, you want someone who kind of like brings you up, you know, makes you a better person, encourages you to rise up, not someone who's going to encourage you to get into yelling matches with strangers. But no, that's a good point. So after this argument with the dry void, the car guy, we learn that Francine has...
It's a dry void is so funny to me.
We learn that Francine has written a song called New York, but we don't get to hear it yet. We'll have to save that for the big finale. They go to this they attend a meeting at this club, this very 70s style club. And basically it's a meeting that Francine helped set up with some record label guy, mogul, whatever, who wants to offer Jimmy some kind of deal.
Yes. You're doing good.
Yeah. So this is another scene where
Francine has arranged this for him. Like, this is somebody whom Francine knows because she and Jimmy are, I think we're supposed to understand, equally talented musicians. But Jimmy is an asshole, fastidious douchebag with a horrible personality. And Francine is like a nice person who's easy to work with. So she's like parlaying her better relationships with people in like the music business to get Jimmy an audience with a decision maker at a record label.
Yeah, she facilitates this meeting. Really, really tough stuff.
This for me was the moment. I watched this scene and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like,
this is unbelievable.
Who acts like this?
Right. Yeah. This is not. I'm sure we'll talk more about other De Niro roles in Scorsese films, Mean Streets and Raging Bull in particular. And you can't excuse it to like his behavior you can't chalk it up to youthful indiscretion, like his character in Mean Streets or anything like that. Like he is, it's a miracle he's able to function in society at all, because they sit down for this meeting with this record executive, Mr. Kirks, and Jimmy just instantly starts acting like a prima donna asshole from the first moment. And the guy seems very pleasant.
I don't want a slow gin fizz. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, the waiter comes over to take their drink order, and the record exec is just, oh yeah, like we'll get you a slow gin fizz or whatever. And Jimmy's like, I don't want a slow gin fizz. Here's
Sounds
what I want.
delicious, by the way. I've never had one, but I love slow gin. I bet you it's great with a little bit of fizziness in it.
A little fizz makes everything better. Yeah. He's like, no, here's what I want. I want a bucket full of whiskey, and I want a gallon of milk, and hold the milk, but still give me the whiskey or whatever. And the record executive and the waiter are like trying very hard to make sense of this total bullshit. And Jimmy,
right, but to that point, the record executive still is totally acquiescing to him.
Yes,
like he's being a total weirdo asshole, and the record executive is still like, sure, bring him the scotch, like whatever he asks for. Like he's still trying to cater to him a little bit, and Jimmy's still fucking it up somehow, even though everyone is doing everything they can to accommodate his weirdness.
Right. He will not allow the meeting to continue for whatever fucked up reason in his head. So he tells Francine that they should leave, and she's like, well, no, like I want to be here with these people. You can leave. And so what does he do? He gets up, he pouts like a little bitch, and he sits at the bar away from their table. And it's unbelievable. Like, how embarrassed? How could you, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask about this sort of thing, but like, how could you be with someone like that and not feel constant embarrassment? Like every waking moment that you share with them when you're out in the real world, it's just, it's terrible. It's
fascinating.
Yeah, putting it lightly. So like as the band is about to perform, Jimmy walks up to the band. He starts a kerfuffle with the band leader. It's just really making a total ass of himself. He's like asked to leave, and then he tries ducking the bouncer and literally gets thrown out of the bar. It's pathetic. So it's the next day, and Jimmy picks Francine up from the hospital. She had a checkup. The fetus is doing well, and he apologizes to her. We cut to nighttime, and we get this shot where it's like an extreme close-up of Liza Minnelli looking in a mirror, and she doesn't seem super happy with her situation. I just wanted to note that one shot because it's the only time we get a close-up this intense, and I thought that was a really interesting choice. In the bathroom at the club, Cecil, one of the musicians, interrupts Jimmy smoking weed in the bathroom stall with some of the other bandmates to say that Francine is there. She brought a record label guy with her, and he wants to sign Francine to a deal.
I think it's the same guy. Just
is it the same guy? Yeah. I have record label executive face blindness. Jimmy seems surprisingly okay with this. So they sit at a table together. There's like Francine, Jimmy, the record exec guy, and like some other dude. And he literally sits down with them for all of like a minute and a half. He seems to verbally okay everything in this deal, and then just gets up because he says he has to make a call. It's just really another weird moment where it seems like he's really inhibiting his wife's professional growth, which I'm sure, comes down to jealousy. After that, Jimmy goes up to the stage to start performing with the band, and he starts playing super hard, very intense, clearly going off script, and Francine just walks out of the club. So Jimmy follows her, and they get into a car to get... Was it a taxi or was it his car? I think it was just his car. I think it was just the two of them in the car.
I think he's driving, right?
Yeah, they get into the car together.
The two of them.
And they have one of the most uncomfortable arguments ever, I think, portrayed on film, where they get into a screaming match, and De Niro yells at Francine, "Did I tell you to have that baby?" Which I think is really not what you want to hear from the father of your unborn child. I think it's one of the worst things you could hear.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah.
Yeah. The argument is so intense that it causes Francine to go into labor. We cut to after the delivery of the baby, and Jimmy visits Francine to the hospital. It's, it's the 40s or whatever. And they are in this big shared room. They're having a conversation. The baby is not with Francine. That's not how they did it back then. So Jimmy hasn't met the baby yet. So he's talking to Francine, and Francine says that the baby was a boy, and she chose the name Jimmy for the baby. Jimmy complains. Jimmy Sr., Jimmy the adult, the ostensible adult, complains that he didn't have a say in naming his son. And I just wrote here, he's exhausting. Like, how could you put up with this guy long enough to conceive a child? I mean, I guess it really doesn't take that long to conceive a child, but my God.
Yeah.
And
there's more in this scene too.
Well, the conclusion, I'm just going to say, the conclusion of this scene is that Jimmy leaves. He abandons his wife and son without ever meeting him.
Yes. And so he says when he complains to her that she named him Jimmy without his involvement, without Jimmy Sr.'s involvement, he says, well, maybe that's the reason why I don't want to meet him, because I feel so resentful that you named him without my say-so, or whatever to that effect. And so that's the justification that he gives her for, to your point, walking out on her and not meeting his son until presumably later in the film. It seems like he's like at least 7 or 8 years old. So for like a really long time, like very normal guy, very normal justification for your weird decision making and bad behavior.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. So we get a time jump to several years later, and Francine appears to be a major popular singer. She's in a recording studio, and her son, who seems to be around 7 or 8 years old, is sleeping on the couch in the studio. She sings a song here, which, I thought was impressive. She's got the vocal chops, Liza Minnelli. I did check out during this.
Very talented singer.
I was really tuning out at this point during the musical numbers. And we see that
I zoned out a lot, but this was the biggest zone out period for me. I was not around psychologically during this part of the film.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the extended edition portion of the film. We get this kind of montage where we see that she's become a big movie star, and she's become the star of a show at New York Music Hall called Happy Endings. So this is not included in the theatrical cut, but we both saw it. There is a 12-minute long musical sequence that is the play Happy Endings. It is the show. So the musical, I think, was like a fictionalization of her own life. Again, I was kind of like tuning out here. I actually thought the choreography was impressive. It looked really good. It was just too much. It was too long in an already long film. It really kind of killed the pacing at the end. So after this happy endings musical sequence, we cut to Jimmy, who's in a movie theater actually watching. He's watching the film in the theater. He watches the end of it, and then it kind of rolls over into a newsreel, which again, that's how you got your news back then in the 40s or whatever. And it shows that Francine has returned to New York City after a 6-year-long absence. And we also get a little bit of info about Jimmy. He's become a very popular recording artist. There's a radio host who says he's going to play an original song that Jimmy just wrote. Pretty neat. So they're both achieving very high levels of success in their respective fields.
Love that for them.
Jimmy, after finishing performing a song at a club, reserves a seat for one of Francine's performances. So this kind of gets us into the final encounter in the end of the film. This is when Francine finally performs the big number, the showstopper, New York, New York, which, as Mike said earlier, is not his preferred version of this song.
You've heard the Frank Sinatra version, right? But you haven't heard it like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it, but it's been so long. I vaguely remember it. Yeah, it's good.
I bet you just totally incidentally, I've listened to it within the past 6 weeks.
Yeah, not I. We have very divergent. That's not part of the overlap in our Venn diagram of musical tastes.
Yeah, I mean, in Rochester, New York, we have a radio station called Legends 1027. And on Legends 1027 every Sunday, they do Sinatra Sundays. I think from like 8 a.m. till noon, they only play Frank Sinatra music. And sometimes I listen to it. It's nice.
See, I don't listen to Legends 1027. Whenever I have to listen to the radio, which is incredibly infrequently, I always throw it on listener-supported Jazz 90.1. No joke.
I only listen to 1027. That's the only radio station I listen to.
What a sicko. After Francine's performance, she finishes New York, New York. It's nice, whatever, crowd goes wild. And she sees Jimmy in a mirror. And we get a really nice split diopter shot, which I thought was pretty cool.
You love those.
I'm a big fan, just like Brian De Palma. They have a brief chat, and Francine asks Jimmy if he's going to say hi to his son on the way out. So he does. He has a little conversation with the son. It's friendly. The kid clearly looks up to him. Wants to have some kind of relationship with his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. He asks, 'cause he asks Francine if they received the drums that he sent Jimmy Jr. And she's like, yeah, of course. So I guess he's not a total deadbeat, but I don't know. He seems like a deadbeat. I get the sense that he's mostly a deadbeat. Jimmy leaves after talking to his son, having that one tiny 2-minute long conversation, and he calls Francine. And everyone it's like the after show, and everyone's partying and celebrating and, celebrating Francine. And he invites her to ditch that whole shebang and invites her to have Chinese food with him. And Francine's tempted. She heads for the door to meet him, but at the last moment, she stops. She changes her mind. And it's raining outside. It's night. Jimmy's waiting on the sidewalk. And we get this moment where he realizes that he's been stood up, and he walks down the street in the rain. And that's the end of the film. Mike, what did you think of New York, New York?
I didn't like this movie at all. I really didn't enjoy it. I found the character of Jimmy tremendously unrelatable. I didn't like him. I love De Niro's performance. I think it's incredible. Unsurprisingly, right? He plays these types of characters really well. And the way that he plays the sax and the way that he carries himself and like all that stuff, it's all very convincing and very cool. I did not love Liza Minnelli's performance. I think she always looks a little bit worried, like all the time. But especially in her conversations with Jimmy. And I remarked to you at the top of the podcast that I didn't think they had very good chemistry. And I think I noticed her kind of worried looks a a lot during those more close-up shots and the conversations she has with Jimmy. And I read on Wikipedia, actually, after watching the movie, that apparently Liza Minnelli really struggled with the improvising that Scorsese wanted them to do. It was part of the touching up of the script that he wanted to do. He wanted the actors to kind of ad-lib a little bit, and apparently she was really uncomfortable with that, whereas, as we learned over the course of this podcast, but especially in the Mean Streets episode, De Niro is an incredible improviser and very talented method actor. And so I don't think that she really works in this role as an actress. She's obviously a tremendously capable singer, and so she does really well in the musical numbers. I like the music. It's the thing I like the most about the film, but I don't know. I don't really like it. I think thematically, to your earlier comments, right? And we can talk about this a little bit more if you'd like. It shares a lot of, I think, thematic DNA with Mean Streets and Raging Bull, right? What it shares with Mean Streets is like the ways irresponsible love can change you and the stupid, insane things it makes you do. To our earlier brief discussion about the kerfuffle when they're in the car arguing with the guy who wants the space. Whereas, what it has in common with Raging Bull, I think, is much more textually obvious, which is that Jimmy Doyle is just a character who's much like Jake LaMotta, just like an angry, jealous asshole who, like, fortunately, I think, is less violent in the ways he expresses those neuroses, but like they're very similar people, I think, in terms of the way they interact with the people in their lives. And I don't know. It's just not nearly as good as either of those two films. And it's so not good that it's pretty surprising that it's a Scorsese film. And it makes sense that he really doesn't want people to see it, which is why you can't find it digitally anywhere. And so for that reason, I give it a soft 3 stars.
Wow. Okay. The soft 3 coming from Mike.
Yep. So it's like, by soft 3, I mean, like, could be a 2.5. But, there are certainly some things about it, right? Like, technically, artistically, the performances, especially De Niro, are like, there's good stuff about this film.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. And I'm actually also giving it a soft 3. I went back and forth on a 2.5 or a 3, but ultimately I think there is a little more that works for me than doesn't. And it's, it's a bad Scorsese film, so it's still better than a lot of the schlock we've seen for this podcast so far. So I kind of want to start with my overall thoughts and then kind of get into a little character analysis, because you made some great points during your final thoughts that kind of inspired my thinking. So this film, it's just too uneven. It's interesting, and I appreciate Scorsese's ambition trying to merge, documentary style realism with the artifice of old Hollywood musicals. And I think that's really cool and admirable, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't coalesce. Maybe that had to do with the place that he was at in his life, or whatever. There are all sorts of factors that contribute to the ultimate success of a film. The styles just never fully cohere for me. It's also way too long for what it's trying to do. And to your point at the beginning of this episode, there are just these long scenes that feel indulgent or inert where we get it.
Long.
The point is made. Yep. Hey, Jimmy's being a huge asshole for no reason. And we see that play out for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And it's like, oh my God, like I want to punch this guy in the face. He's so annoying. Point made. This doesn't have to be nearly 3 hours
He's
long.
An annoying guy. All right. 3 hours long.
And I agree with you. I didn't find him particularly compelling, which I want to get into, come back around to in a minute. He's just grating in this way that didn't hold much depth for me. But there is some good stuff here. I did like the set design. I thought the cinematography, while not ultimately successful in marrying those two styles, did look good for what it was worth. And I liked De Niro and Minnelli's performances. I don't think their chemistry was great, but Minelli, obviously an incredibly talented voice performer, a singer, and they both felt committed. I do wish there was a little more to Francine's character, though. We see her exude a lot of quiet strength, and a lot of the way that her character operates is in how she reacts to Jimmy. I guess that's partially just due to the gender roles in the 40s and how much autonomy she had. I wish there was a little more there in this film's bloated runtime. So overall, I think it's not bad. I don't know if I'd call it good though. It's mixed. It's mixed.
It's not bad.
It's exactly. Yeah. Throw that on the DVD cover. So the next time someone rents it at their local library, they see a quote from this
that's
podcast.
nicer than what a lot of critics had to say about it at the time. So
yeah. One other thing that I want to talk about before we get into our recommendations is something that I grappled with after I watched the film, because I was thinking about that soft 3 kind of rating, and I was comparing it to Raging Bull. And I was trying to figure out, for myself personally at least, why do I like Jake LaMotta from Raging Bull as a protagonist so much more than I like Jimmy Doyle from New York, New York? And I think it comes down to a few things. One, Jake is a very honest character, and Jimmy is not. He's very slippery. So Jake LaMotta, he's very raw, he's unfiltered. He's incapable of hiding his pain. It's always visible in the way that he acts, in the way that he speaks. You can usually see what he's afraid of when he's acting out, these fears of abandonment or emasculation or this loss of control in his life and his relationship. Conversely, Jimmy, again, exhausting is the word for him, because he is just, everything is a performance for him. He's always so dramatic. He's always so theatrical. He's always making a mountain out of a molehill for no reason. And he just belabors every point to the point where he is just not charming at all. It really wastes away over the course of the film's runtime. 2, and this is a big one, I think we talked about this a lot in our episode about Raging Bull. To me, Jake LaMotta's arc feels very tragic. There's a fatalism to it. There's that moment early in the film where he says, maybe I'm just a jinx. And we just see the tragedy of him being unable to get out of his own way until it's way too late, until he's, destroyed his relationships with his wife and his brother. When it comes to Jimmy, in this film, his tragedy feels totally avoidable. He had every opportunity for success at every single turn, and he just throws it all away for no reason. He walks away from his wife and his son, and he is an asshole in every scene, at every stretch, for seemingly no reason, to no sort of gain. I didn't understand the psychology of the character as well as I felt like I understood Jake LaMotta's. It just feels like his arc in this film is just a string of selfish decisions. And I just never gelled with that the way that I gelled with the LaMotta character in Raging Bull. And then last, I feel like Raging Bull does a better job of giving Jake consequences for his actions. That is what is so sad about that film. We see him destroy his relationship with his brother and his wife, and he ends up just alone. Forced to live this life as a stand-up comedian working small clubs.
a fate worse than death.
Right. But what is Jimmy's fate at the end of this film? He gets to continue his life as an incredibly successful jazz recording artist. And I don't know, Francine doesn't seem to totally hate him for abandoning her and her son. Yeah, soft 3 for this one. Certainly not a favorite, and a big step down from the previous 2 Scorsese films that we've seen for this podcast.
Completely agreed. Yep, absolutely. And now it's over, right?
That's
we don't
true.
have to watch it again. So that's exciting.
Silver linings, man.
Silver linings playbook, baby.
To that point, Mike, what film would you like to recommend instead of New York, New York?
Sure. So one, to start, it's worth recommending, right? So I'll just say it, since you're not going to make your recommendation and you obviously alluded to it earlier. But if you liked this movie or didn't like this movie, like whatever you thought about it, you should watch the Damien Chazelle film Whiplash, because it's really nice. It's about a similar type of asshole, I think. But J.K. Simmons, I think, plays it scarier and also more sparsely characterized. In a way that makes it work a lot better. And, something that I think Whiplash has in common with this film that's really nice is the music is also real. And so there's a very physical quality, like real sort of lived in quality to the world of Whiplash that I think is, akin to the nicest things about this film, which are, the times when it feels like real, like it isn't the fake sets that have that tension with the rest of what's going on in the film. So you should watch Whiplash. It's really nice, but that's not my recommendation.
Yeah, I second that. That was my runner-up for this week.
Mine too. I only didn't pick it because I thought you were going to pick it.
Oh, no. Interesting. No,
Yeah.
I would just say that I think it works a lot better for many reasons, but it works better than New York, New York because J.K. Simmons' character is the antagonist of that film. The film
Yep.
knows he's a bad guy. Whereas in this film, Jimmy is the protagonist and we're supposed to empathize with him to a certain degree. And it is exceptionally
But what?
difficult. Yeah, exactly.
What's there to empathize with? Yeah. And so for a similar reason, I'd like to make the recommendation that I am going to make, which is the 2013 Coen Brothers film Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh.
It's also a musical, right? But it's the type of musical that I like. The music in Inside Llewyn Davis isn't show tunes. It's just very authentic sounding folk music from the period in which this film is a period piece. This was Oscar Isaac's breakout role. I think in the intervening period, we have come to recognize rightly Oscar Isaac as one of the great actors of the modern era, but nobody really knew about him before this film came out, and he is incredible in the film. Lots of overlap between this film and Inside Llewyn Davis. One, Llewyn Davis is also a huge asshole, but the way that he is an asshole is so much less annoying than the way Jimmy is an asshole, honestly. Like, it kind of cuts, I think, the difference a little bit between the character of Jimmy and the character of Jake LaMotta, where there's more like of an emotional resonance and foundation and through line, and like you can detect the trauma that might have underpinned it a little bit with Llewyn Davis in a way that you cannot with Jimmy Doyle in New York, New York at all. Number two, I think just cinematographically, Inside Llewyn Davis is a beautiful film. It's an incredible period piece. It takes place in I believe the late 1960s, and everything is just very authentic, and it all looks very real, and it's really nice. Oscar Isaac performs the music in the film, and he is fantastic. He's a very talented musician. So it all, in the same way, I think that the New York, New York stuff with Robert De Niro playing the saxophone looks and feels very real while you're watching it. All the music in Inside Llewyn Davis looks and feels very real. And Inside Llewyn Davis is really, really funny. It makes you laugh a lot. And New York, New York is not. New York, New York really wasn't fun. It really wasn't very funny. Didn't really like many of the characters very much. Yeah, I really like Inside Llewyn Davis. It's one of those films where I watched it for the first time. Must have been almost 2 years ago. Yeah, about 2 years ago. I gave it 4 stars at the time. I don't think I really understood it when I rated it immediately after watching it. And then in thinking about it in the intervening years, on a rewatch, it would almost certainly be 4.5, maybe soft 5. So it's a pretty incredible film, and I would really, really strongly recommend it. It's one of the Coen brothers' great films.
That is a good recommendation. It's not what I guessed. I thought you were going to say either Whiplash or La La Land.
Yeah, I haven't seen La La Land, so there
I'll
you go.
never watch it. I'm not a fan of it.
It's the obvious.
It seems like the very obvious choice. Yeah. No, that's a great recommendation, and I need to watch that film. It's on the list. It's been on the list.
You'll be a big fan. You might like it more than me, honestly, when you watch it. It's extremely your shit. Llewyn Davis is extremely like your kind of protagonist.
Oh man, I love a good protagonist. Okay, it just jumped up the list. That's how it works. My recommendation is the 1985 Martin Scorsese film After Hours. I don't think you've ever seen this film. I'm going to tell you all about it.
I haven't. No.
It is a black comedy, and it was basically made during a time where Scorsese basically described it as a style exercise. And so it stars Griffin Dunn, so I'll never watch it for this podcast. That's kind of why I wanted to highlight it here today. As an ordinary office worker, a Manhattan office worker who tries to hook up with this woman in Soho late at night, and he goes over to her place, and it basically follows him over the course of that night and turns into this escalating, surreal nightmare of a situation. You basically follow him over the course of the night as he just engages in a bunch of strange encounters and that just feel more surreal and dangerous than the last. It's a great counterpoint to New York, New York, because it's another New York film, but whereas New York, New York offers this idealized, artificial version of New York City that's, based on this nostalgic old Hollywood kind of aesthetic, After Hours is more gritty and menacing. It has a great look and feel to it, great nighttime cinematography. It's more of a claustrophobic urban nightmare kind of film, but because it's a black comedy, it's not too dark. It's just has a very unsettling vibe, which I thought was really great. And the kicker is it's only an hour and a half long. So you could watch it almost 2 times in the amount of time that it took us to watch New York, New York.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. You actually might get me with this tonight.
Yeah, no, I had a great time watching it. Great movie to watch at night. It is shot very kinetically, really just restlessly, and it is very stylistic. Really had a good time with it. So yeah, definitely recommend After Hours instead of New York, New York if you're looking for some Scorsese magic.
Yeah, here's why you might get me with this tonight. 1, it's only an hour and a half long. Pretty incredible. But number 2 is, Caroline has discovered in watching the past few films with me, she hasn't seen a lot of Scorsese films, but she's finding that she's really liking him. So she's told me she wants to watch every Scorsese film. So I got Caroline tonight. It's a nice short movie, could happen. Hour and a half long. Beautiful stuff. Yep. And it doesn't have Robert De Niro in it. So we don't have to wait to watch it for the pod.
Exactly. And with that, it's time to move over to our final segment of the show, rolling for next week's film. It's your turn to roll, Mike. What are you hoping to get?
It's tough. I mean, obviously, what else could I hope for other than Silver Linings Playbook? But I honestly am kind of hoping to roll a Scorsese film just because I think it would be amazing to actually do a fourth. What are the chances, You
know what's interesting? I am on the total opposite side of you, and I want something light and stupid that I do not have to really engage with.
Yeah, I think the chances are actually reasonably high. I mean, because, obviously, it's a thing about probability, right? It's every event is its own event. And so there is probably a 6 or 7% chance actually that we're going to roll a Scorsese film. So let's see how we do. I'm going to roll. Here we go. I have rolled 54, which is Killer Elite from 2011.
Oh boy, be careful what you wish for. I have seen this film. Well,
ooh, really?
Half of it to be exact. Yeah, that's a story for next week.
Really bad.
Why don't you say something about it?
Killer Elite is a 2011 action thriller film directed by Gary McKendry and stars. You got a syntactical error in the first sentence of the Wikipedia article, so that's how you know this is a really serious film with serious fans. And stars Jason Statham, Clive Owen, and Robert De Niro. There you go.
Listen, I love all of those actors.
Mixed reviews. Yeah, oh, so do I. Absolutely. How could you not? But it does have a 44 on Metacritic, so there you go.
All right, so if you watch along with us, next week's film is Killer Elite. You have 7 days to watch it. All right, I want to thank all the loyal citizens of De Niro Nation for listening to this week's episode. If you haven't followed us on Letterboxd yet, I'm Mike back at you, and he's Mike the Fab. Email us with your questions, comments, concerns, feedback at ourherodeniro@gmail.com. And please rate us 5 stars in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you use.
We need this.
Exactly. And thank you to Caroline for making our fantastic podcast artwork. We'll see you next week with an episode about Killer Elite.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.